If you're going to play high-level golf or you're going to improve your golf swing, you want to know where your low point is. Any shape-looking golf swing, if the golfer's pretty good, they have control over their low point.
Yeah, and we have lots of golfers that come through this facility, and we have 9 TrackMans, and that's one of the things that we have golfers look at is where's the club bottoming out during the swing. If you're bottoming out behind the ball, you know you got an issue there that you got to try to fix right away.
Right, and we took a poll, it's been years ago now, almost 7 years ago, where we asked, I think it was right around 3,000 golfers, what the #1 bad shot was for them when they went out and played. And I thought we would see slice or hook or something. It was the fat shot. So if you don't have control of your low point, you're going to hit that big ball way before the little ball most of the time.
Exactly. It's one of those commonalities of good players. They can swing from the inside slightly and still get the low point for it, because there's a lot of easy ways to do it. One of them just chopping down the ball. That's really not
That's not
the
a
thing
great
we're
way.
trying to get you to do it. It's a little bit of a cheat. So today we're going to talk about how to get in the right place at impact to get the low point forward and still hit slightly from the inside.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misconception about where the low point is in the golf swing. We'll clear it up for you now. It's not the center of the torso.
No.
It's not. So let's have Shaun set up to it. We're just going to kind of deconstruct what needs to happen to move his low point in front of the golf ball. So we're going to mark the center of his shoulder, okay? Left hip, so you kind of get an idea of where he's starting from. And we'll have Laz put some diagrams there on the screen.
Perfect.
So this is address. Where do you need to be? Where do you need to be
I know what you meant.
at impact relative to where you are now?
So the thing we always show golfers is, if I took a line straight up from my lead foot here and just drew it straight up, we got to cover that gap. We got to close that gap by the time we hit the ball, right? And so the pelvis will shift forward. The knees will change. So the right knee will come inward some as the left knee straightens, so you have more bend in your trail knee than your lead knee. Torso will be forward slightly, but not the rib cage. Will be forward slightly, but not quite as much as the pelvis. So it gives me this, few degrees of tilt here, maybe 10 degrees or so with an iron.
The center of the three-dimensional center of your pelvis, what we see with great players, will basically be on the front side of the golf ball, somewhere on the front edge. Your shirt buttons, the center of your chest, will be kind of on the back side. That's about covers the 10 degrees of tilt. You don't want to have them really separated a bunch.
We called it framing the ball.
Right.
So, there's a gap there between those two that works, and there's a gap that makes it more difficult. Right. Or even the other way, someone that kind of dives out in front. So that's an important factor to all of this. You could try, but it's hard just to shoot the club somewhere without getting the appropriate kind of body positioning.
Knowing where you start at address and knowing where you want to be at impact is a concept that seems super simple. Like, okay, I want shaft lean, turn, everything forward. But when we ask golfers to, all right, show us what that means to you. Let's look at some of the examples that we see, and on a daily basis, not extreme examples. These are common examples that we see.
Yeah, I don't know how I got doing this years ago, but I just started asking golfers, and we do it now in every lesson. Show me where you think you should be at impact.
Right.
Like Mike said, the golfer will get in there, and we'll see a little bit of everything. And it kind of has trended over the years, but lately it's this kind of super open look where their pelvis is backed up, and they've got tons of right side bend in here, and they pose that even with the club way off the ground. And
It's always with the club off the ground.
yeah, we'll ask, well, how are you going to hit the ball? The club's not on the ground. So that's one of the more recent ones. One of the more common ones when you get more beginner players or golfers that haven't been around the game as long, they just kind of just move a tiny bit.
Right.
The handle's in the same place. They might be a little bit on their front foot, maybe not, but I'll always ask, do you think you need to come back to the same place? Some might say, yeah, I thought I was just trying to kind of get the club back to where it started. So get a little bit of everything, but hardly ever do I get a really good looking pose at impact.
You covered actually the two camps that golfers fall into. It's, I'm just returning back to my address position. We've all seen golfers that do that. Or the flip side of that coin is I'm going to get so open that this lead hip has to go backwards, my tailbone goes backwards, and my chest is pointing way over here, my shoulders are way over here, and I get something that looks like that. We don't really see either of those examples in real good players.
No, and I'm just going to flip back to the second example. we fixed a lot of golf swings, just letting golfers know that the handle should be a little bit higher than it was at address. Just by doing that, a lot of times the club will shallow out more and they're able to square the face. So understanding where you need to be with the body and the club is a huge deal here.
Show me a really good example of impact.
So if I shift it over a little, change my knees, shoulder line square to slightly open, trail elbow a little more bent than the lead, and I'm just kind of in there like
Okay,
that.
now the low point, which is going to be after the ball,
Yeah.
is basically right under the center of your shoulder.
So it's when this club has got a little bit of shaft lean and impact. Once it lines up completely, the ball is already gone. That's about where the low point will be.
Now I'm going to put my hand here just to kind of represent where that is. Now go back to the overly open impact position. So you can see how far now you've moved the low point back, right, just by turning more. So the only option you have now to get the low point forward is to really straighten the arm and push the hands out in front of you.
Yeah, I know this one well. Worked on a swing pattern for a while that required that kind of shove. It makes it very difficult. I mean, you're going to hit a lot of fat shots at first, and once you do figure it out, you have to shove the handle so far forward, you almost overly shaft lean it. And then you've got another problem too. You have to have a lot of twist in the handle. So I mean, to me, it's an added complexity that you don't really want to do.
Right. So we know that we want to have the body moving forward, okay, from address compared to impact. The pelvis, about 4.5 inches forward, 3.5 to 4.5 inches forward. That carries the upper body with it. I don't want to leave my upper body back. Okay, I want to make sure it goes forward. There's going to be, again, framing the ball, a little bit of tilt. Now let's talk about where the turn and hands need to be to accomplish that.
Yeah, so you've got the body positioning. What you want to try to avoid is this shove. So what we try to have golfers is feel like they're hitting more off their trail side. So if this is the middle of my body, cut right up the middle, and I turn 45 degrees, call that the middle of my body now. The hands are actually on the trail side of that at impact. It gives you the best chance to sequence the body correctly, get the low point forward, and have that good face control.
We've been capturing pros now for a long time. I think we've gotten guys have won 40 times in the last 3 years alone. We haven't yet seen a professional golf tour player have his hands in front of his center line. They're always on the trail side, no matter who it is.
Yeah, like they all swing it a little bit different, but they have these commonalities that really jump out to us. Like, wow, everybody is doing this, no matter what it looks like for the rest of the swing.
So to really light bulb this for you, you're going to be at address. Okay, hands will be a little forward, right of center, most golfers. Impact isn't doing this. Impact is going to be move my hands to my trail side. Now I move my trail side forward, right? So impact is here, then that moves forward rather than, if I just do this here and then turn, now I'm in a really unplayable concept.
Yeah, and the other part about that is in real time, if you're trying to get your hands forward of your center line, your body's going to brace for that.
It's going to stop.
And it's going to stop. So it kind of defeats the purpose, especially if you're trying to get open.
Right.
It's going to make that difficult, if not impossible, to do.
So a great way to start to train this for yourself with everything we've talked about is, I like to use a little notebook, and I do this all the time in online lessons. I'll use this notebook to kind of represent my center line, okay? So I'll just hold it here in my center line, get myself forward, and I'm just going to do my right hand only. Then I'm just going to pivot and come through. Pivot and come through. So my hands, if I do this to the camera, are nowhere near crossing my center line compared to trying to get them across. Now, do that, chip balls with it. I mean, it's a great short game drill. Do that to chip balls with. Now, when you get comfortable doing that, now you add two hands. Let's talk about what we want to see with two hands on the club now.
Yeah, so I've got both hands on the club in my address position. You could pose that impact position, right? And what we like to have golfers do sometimes, just make a little short swing, maybe waist high to just short of waist high over here. Just swing the arms and wrists back a little bit. You'll get a little shoulder turn, but try to leave your lower body there. I want you to kind of float the club a little where it loads the wrist, and then just swing through to where the club points back at you.
Right.
And it gives you that feeling of the body's in position, the wrists are loaded correctly, and they unload to there. And we see a lot of golfers trying to hold this angle to get the low point. You don't want to do that.
I love the BB analogy you use a lot of times in lessons.
We haven't talked about that one in a minute in a video, but we use it in lessons all the time. So we try to imagine there's a BB in this shaft, zook, zook, like that. You set it so the BB would drop here. Now I'm trying to shoot the BB to right there, about, I don't know, what would it be, 4 o'clock or so, 5 o'clock
Yeah,
or so,
yeah.
on a big clock around me.
That would be 4 o'clock, yeah?
Yeah.
I'd be right at 3.
So bang, shoot the BB out, get the feeling for that. Instead of trying to hold the BB, I don't feel like, I've been doing this a long time and giving a lot of lessons. This thing here doesn't transfer real well to a normal golf swing.
No. A lot of golfers will think they're flipping it by doing that. That's not a flip. You have to release it. The release is this for everybody.
We've got
Every
that
good
overhead
player.
camera
Yes.
and
For everybody. Tour player, what? You're releasing it now. Where this happens, you want it to happen after impact, not before impact, right? It goes back to controlling low point.
yeah, you're setting the system up for that, allowing the wrist angles to work. But if you were to come down and you're a little bit too much on your trail side, you hadn't shifted forward enough, and you try to do that, that's when you either fat shot or you're having to do some kind of manipulation to get the low point forward. We're trying to get as much of a freewheeling motion as we can without holding any angles. And once you understand the body positioning, you can let this angle out a lot easier and get it to bottom out in front.
Exactly right. That's the whole key. Easier and in front.
That's what we
right?
want.
So give this drill a try. Grab a couch cushion, a notebook. Try it with one hand first. Don't try to go from backswing to downswing in these little swings. Just park yourself on the front foot. And you're just kind of imitating what's going to happen in that delivery phase of the swing. Once you can catch it cleanly by using only the right hand, you get the feel for impact staying on the trail side of the body. Then add 2, and then that'll start to grow to a full backswing, then a full downswing, and then you've got yourself a swing that controls the low point and hits the ball solidly.